Chapter 3. Focus. Note-taking. Focus A. Note-taking for conversations. 1. Guided practice. Number 1. Campus life. Listen and take notes on the important information in the conversation.
Have you thought about what you're going to do this summer, Gloria?
Well, I can work full-time at the restaurant if I want to.
That's where you worked last summer, right?
Yes, and I'm still working there part-time.
Do they pay pretty well?
Yes, with tips the money is pretty good, but I'm graduating next year, so I'd like to get some experience in my field.
That's a good idea. Maybe you should try to get an internship.
An internship? I'd love to. It would mean a pay cut, but it'd be worth it.
Yeah, they don't pay very well, but in the long run, they sure do pay off. Not only do you get experience, you make all kinds of contacts.
Yes, it would be good to have some experience and some references under my belt when I start looking for work after graduation. I just have no idea how to go about finding a summer internship.
Why don't you go to the summer job internship fair?
I didn't know such a thing existed. When do they hold that?
Hang on, I've got the pamphlet in my backpack.
Great.
Here it is. Let's see. It's actually next week on the 16th. It starts at 9:30 a.m. and goes until 3 p.m.
Is it here on campus?
At the University Center Ballroom.
That's great. Is it casual or should I dress as if I'm going to an interview?
It says here that it's business casual.
So, should I bring my resume?
It's not mandatory, but it's a good idea.
Okay. Does it say there what kinds of internships are available?
You're into logistics, right?
Yep.
Well, they've got something at Office Depot and at Walmart.
Fantastic. Are you going too?
Yes, I'm going to try to get hired on at a summer camp.
Ooh, that sounds like fun.
It sure would be. It would be a good experience, too, since I'm studying to be a teacher.
Yeah, that would be excellent. Are there many camps listed on there?
There are 3. One's at Camp Tonawanda, one's at Wesley Woods, and the other is at Camp Webb.
Camp Tonawanda? I went there when I was a kid. I had a horrible time. The camp counselors were awful.
Really? Well, I'll be different.
I'm sure you will. I'll give you a few pointers sometime.
Let's just wait and see if I get the job.
You won't have any trouble. You're at the top of your class, and you do all that volunteer work.
Thanks for the vote of confidence, and good luck to you.
Thanks. I'll need it. Hey, do you want to go together?
Sure, we should go early.
Good idea. We'll look enthusiastic that way.
Let's meet at 9:15.
Number 2. Campus life. Listen and take notes on the important information in the conversation.
Is there something I can help you with?
Yes, I have a few questions about that online tutoring service. I can't remember what it's called.
You mean smartthinking.com? I think I can probably answer any questions you might have. What would you like to know?
Well, I'm thinking of enrolling, but there are a couple of things I'd like to know first. Like, for one thing, are there any restrictions on log-on times? I usually do my work late at night, so it won't be much use to me if it can only be accessed during regular working hours.
Not to worry. You are free to log on anytime, anywhere.
That's good to hear. I've also heard that there is some kind of writing clinic or something. What can you tell me about that?
Ah, you mean the writing lab. Yes, what that is a tool to help you improve your writing. You could submit your writing to the online writing lab, and you will receive a critique with some constructive criticism to help you develop your writing skills. It's also open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
That should be helpful. Will I get an instant reply?
It won't be instant, but you will receive a reply within 24 hours. We give priority to distance education students because it is impossible for them to consult their instructors face-to-face. But everyone using Smart Thinking will get a fast response. Remember the 24-hour rule, though. If you have a paper due at 8 o'clock the following morning, you probably won't get your response in time. Always submit your work at least 2 days before the paper is due. Be sure to leave yourself enough time to do revisions as well.
What about security? Is there any chance somebody could get a hold of my paper and copy it for themselves?
Absolutely not. Everyone who has access to submissions in the writing lab is accountable.
Oh, the papers go to a writing lab? So these aren't English professors who are giving feedback?
No, your paper will be evaluated by a graduate student who works in our writing lab. Most of them are English majors, but even if they're not, they all have a strong background in writing.
I see. Now, I know that the tutoring program is free, but is there any kind of registration fee for first-time users?
No, there are no charges at all. However, only students currently enrolled at Citywide Community College can use Smart Thinking. It has been set up to provide academic support for our students, so unfortunately, we can't offer the service to anyone else. Are you currently enrolled at this community college?
Yes.
Great. What kind of computer do you have?
I have a Mac. That won't be a problem, will it?
No, not at all. As long as you have Internet Explorer, you'll be able to log on to the online tutoring system with no difficulties. I assume that you have a modem?
Right. I have a 56K modem.
That's fine. Then all you need to do now is choose your subjects and sign up.
Can I sign up right now?
Of course. Those two computers right over there have Internet access. You can use either one to log on and sign up.
Great, thanks.
2. Self-practice. Number 1. Campus life. Listen and take notes on the important information in the conversation.
Excuse me,
Yes, may I help you?
I have a question about getting a book.
Sure, I can help you with that. Did you need help finding the book?
No, I found it, or at least I found the listing on the computer, but it says the book is checked out, so I wanted to ask if there was any way to put my name on a list or something, so that I can come get the book once it is checked back in.
Oh, I see. You want to reserve the book.
I guess so. Do you have a reserve list or something?
Actually, you can reserve a book using the library computer. Let me show you. We can use this computer right over here. You can type in the information. I'll just tell you what you need to do at each step.
Great, thanks.
Go ahead and type in the title of the book that you need.
So I just do a regular search? Like I want to find the book in the library, like this.
That's right. Is that the book you were looking for?
That's it. See, it lists a due date next week.
Okay. There is a button at the top of the screen that will allow you to request the next available copy as soon as it comes in.
Let me guess. This button that says, Request next available copy?
Right.
I feel dumb.
Not at all. I work with this system every day, so I know all of its features. Most students don't know half of the options available to them with our computer system. It can do a lot more than students use it for.
Now, it's asking me for my card number and PIN. I guess that means my student ID number, since that's what I use as my library card?
Correct. And your PIN is the same as the PIN number you use when you access the university's online registration or other computer services.
Then I just click this login button down here?
Uh-huh. And after your login information is confirmed, the request page should open. There it is. You can see that the box next to the pickup option is already checked. Just leave that checked, and when the book comes in, the circulation desk will email you that the book is here. Then you can come in and pick it up.
What if I uncheck the pickup box? How can I get the book?
Then the book will be mailed to the address we have on file with your student ID card, but mailing the book takes longer. If you need the book right away for class or for some research that you're doing, I would suggest just coming in and picking it up.
Yeah, I want the book as soon as possible, so I'll come pick it up.
Then you can just click the request button at the bottom of the screen and you're done.
Okay, request. Done. That was easy. Thanks for your help.
Number 2. Campus life. Listen and take notes on the important information in the conversation.
Donna, what are you doing? The cafeteria has closed for the afternoon. Why are you sitting here?
Oh, nothing. I just didn't want to go back to my dorm room yet.
Uh-oh. Roommate problems?
Kind of. Yes, I don't know, Rob. I just don't think I can live with her for the rest of the semester. I mean, she's not a terrible roommate. It's just the small things that irritate me, and recently there have been more and more small things.
Well, you can't spend the rest of the semester here in front of the cafeteria. You're going to have to talk to your roommate and let her know what's bothering you.
I can't do that.
Why not? I thought you were living with your old high school friend.
I am. That's why I can't tell her all the things that are bothering me. We've been friends for years. How can I tell her this long list of stuff that she does that drives me up the wall?
Are you afraid you'll offend her or something? Hey, better to talk about this and get things out in the open. You might offend her, but at least there is a chance you can still be friends. If you don't talk to her about how you feel, you could end up going your separate ways at the end of the semester and never speaking to each other again.
The end of the semester. That seems so far away right now. Can't you think of anything else, Rob? Some other way, like a mutual friend of ours telling her for me? Do you think that would work?
And drag someone else in the middle of the problem? No, that is definitely not a good idea. But maybe there is something else you can do. You could tell your resident advisor about the problem. Then she could act as a mediator for the two of you.
Hey, that's not a bad idea. I could talk to Beth. She's cool. I'm sure she'd understand.
That's really what resident advisors are there for, you know. When roommates are having problems, they try to solve things from an unbiased perspective.
Did you ever have to ask your resident advisor to mediate a problem with your roommate?
No, I never had a problem with my roommate. Actually, I never saw too much of my first roommate. Either I was too busy with stuff, or he was too busy with stuff. We were never in the room hanging out together. It was just the place where we both slept. And my roommate this semester works in a lab, so I never see him either.
Lucky you. My roommate is always in our room watching TV. That's one of the things that bugs me.
Hopefully your resident advisor will help you work things out.
Yeah, I think I'll go talk to her right now.
Focus B. Note-taking for lectures. 1. Guided practice. Number 1. Geography. Listen and take notes on the important information in the lecture.
Good day, everyone. Today we're going to be looking at some of the effects the moon has on our lives. Can anyone tell me one such effect?
Well, I've heard that full moons make people do crazy things.
Yes, I've heard that too. Some statistics support that idea, but other studies refute it. In any case, you can debate that more in your psychology classes, but this is geography. So, what physical effect does the moon have on our planet?
Oh, okay then. Well, how about the tides? The moon's gravitational pull causes the tides, right?
Right you are. That's the information I was looking for. Thank you. So, we know the moon causes tidal movement in the oceans, but can the moon cause rain? Do the moon and sun create tidal effects in the atmosphere as well as the oceans? In the past century, an air tide, or rather a kind of shifting of the atmosphere, is being recognized. That specifically is what we're going to discuss today. As always, you're more than welcome to ask any questions you have as we go along. The possibility of gravitational tides in the Earth's atmosphere was first suggested by Sir Isaac Newton. Newton is most famous for what discovery? Anyone?
Wasn't he the gravity guy?
The gravity guy? Yes, I think you could say that. Newton was the first person to describe the force of gravity. Now, he came up with this theory on atmospheric tides while developing an explanation for ocean tides. Since 1918, scientists have been measuring air tides in the northern hemisphere, and although the changes in air pressure are small, their effects are not. Studies have shown that more cloudiness, rainfall, and storms are generated during certain lunar phases, such as the full moon. In fact, even before Newton set down his theories on tides, people were aware that lunar phases corresponded with the rise and fall of the ocean tides. More recently, we have found that the moon is even able to cause deformations in the solid crust of the Earth. So, much in the same way the moon affects tidal movement in certain ways, it also pulls on the Earth's crust as well, causing it to move too. Yes, amazing, isn't it? The ground we walk on every day isn't necessarily as solid as it seems. Yes, there in the blue sweater.
The textbook mentions that the moon can cause an atmospheric tide and that it can create changes in air pressure. Is this an air tide? And is it true that these changes in air pressure can cause hurricanes?
As I was saying earlier, studies have shown an increase in storms corresponding to certain lunar phases. While we cannot yet explain this in full, it does appear that the moon has an influence on the weather. Whether they directly cause hurricanes or not, well, we'll have to wait for further research to determine that with any certainty, I'm afraid. Let's look more at what happens during a full moon, though. Researchers at the University of Arizona discovered that at the time of a full moon, the temperature of the lower 4 miles of the Earth's atmosphere increases by a few hundredths of a degree. Now, a few hundredths of a degree may not sound like much to you, and you probably couldn't feel the difference yourselves, but it is significant. These researchers suggest that the moon warms our atmosphere in two ways. First, the moon's surface is heated by the sun and radiates thermal energy at the Earth. This energy is much less intense than the energy we get directly from the sun, but it is supplemented by a second phenomenon. The moon, of course, mirrors or reflects sunlight at the dark or night side of the Earth. However, the mirror effect is relatively slight because it reflects just 10% of the light of the sun. Nonetheless, as you all have experienced, I'm sure, that 10% is quite significant when compared to the 0% reflected during a new moon. The difference is night and day, so to speak, if you'll forgive the pun. Anyhow, what I want you to take away from today's lecture is the fact that the moon can affect our weather. While we still have much to learn, we may well be justified in blaming the moon for a rainy day.
Number 2. Earth Science. Listen and take notes on the important information in the lecture.
Today, I'll begin with the basics about minerals. It's important that you supplement this information by reading Chapter 3 in your textbook because I'm sticking only to the bare bones here. All right. It's essential to remember that both chemical composition and crystal structure together define a mineral. Some students find that surprising. They think that crystals are pure, just one element. That may be true for some crystals, but not all. Minerals range in composition from pure elements and simple salts to very complex silicates with thousands of known forms. So, to define a mineral, we have to figure its composition. What all is in it? Now, here is a useful tip that may save you a point or two on the next exam. Organic compounds are usually excluded from the category mineral. Got that? If it's organic, don't classify it as a mineral. In fact, there are 5 main criteria for calling something a mineral. Let's go through those criteria. First of all, it must be in a solid state, not liquid, gas, or plasma. Minerals are solid. Second, it must be naturally occurring. In other words, it can't be man-made. Third, it has to be inorganic. Like I said, if it's organic, it's not a mineral. So we're on number 4 now. Fourth, for something to be a mineral, it needs to have a fixed composition, which means the chemical composition is the same everywhere it is found and every time it is found. Mineral X found in my backyard is going to have the same composition as mineral X found in Australia. Finally, our 5th criterion is that a mineral must be either an element or a compound, so it cannot be a mixture of a chemical compound and an element. Don't worry if that last one seems a bit vague at the moment. We'll talk a lot more about that over the next couple of classes. Sometimes we get certain cases that satisfy all but one criterion. That's close, but not a mineral. These things are usually classified as mineraloids. Pearls would be a good example. Pearls are solid. They occur naturally. They have a fixed composition, and they're a compound. The only criterion they don't meet is the inorganic test. Pearls are actually a mixture of organic and inorganic substances. So, because they have that extra organic stuff mixed in, we can't classify them as minerals. Pearls should be called mineraloids. Now, here's another interesting case. Two or more minerals may have the same chemical composition, but differ in crystal structure. These are known as polymorphs. A good example of a polymorph pair is pyrite and marcasite, which are both iron sulfide. Let's create a simple analogy to help you grasp that concept in case you're confused. Let's say Michelangelo has one large piece of marble. He splits it in two. One piece he carves into the shape of a horse, and the other piece into the shape of a woman. They are exactly the same in chemical composition, but nobody would really claim they're the same after he's finished. Think of pyrite and marcasite as two of nature's sculptures, both made of iron sulfide. All right, let's see if you've been listening. Here's my question. How about frozen H2O, or ice in layman's terms? Is it a mineral? Anybody? Yes, Sam.
Well, I'm not positive about this, but in liquid state, it's just a chemical compound, right? But as ice, it becomes a mineral.
We've got the 5 criteria for minerals, right? Tell me about each one in terms of ice and we can check.
Okay. Ice is a solid with crystalline structure, and it's not a human-made substance. Ice isn't alive and never has been. It's, how did you put it? Exactly the same everywhere you find it and every time you find it, or whatever. It's a pure compound, although it might have other elements suspended in it. Did I cover everything?
Well done, Sam. I'm glad somebody was listening. You're absolutely right. Ice is a mineral.
Kind of strange, though. Before this class, I never would have thought of ice as a mineral.
I agree that it's odd to think of it as a mineral. That's because most of the minerals around us seem like metals or rocks. Most people forget that minerals come in many states of matter and forms. That's why we have those 5 criteria for determining whether or not a substance is a mineral. Also, we need to keep in mind that both chemical composition and crystal structure together define a mineral. Okay, so now we can identify minerals. But what can we do with them?
2. Self-practice. Number 1. Biology. Listen and take notes on the important information in the lecture.
Have you ever wondered how we know which plants are good to eat and which ones are poisonous? Well, it was simply a very long and drawn-out process of trial and error. Throughout history, people ate what they could find, kill, or otherwise get a hold of. When there was a lack of a traditional food source, people had to try new things. Over time, they started to figure out which plants made them sick and which didn't. Now, I am not just talking about ancient times before farming became established. This trial and error with plants was going on well into the 18th and 19th centuries. In fact, historical records indicate that in the 1800s, plant poisoning had become a serious issue. Since food wasn't as readily available then as it is today, people were forced to take more chances with what they ate. Rather than drop by the market at the end of the street, people would have to wander out into the fields or forests and find whatever looked edible. Today, because the food supply is rather ample and stable, we rarely have to go find our lunch or dinner out in the woods. Nonetheless, we still need to be careful. Poisonous plants can be found all around us, in our homes as decoration, in our lawns, and in the general landscape. Of course, we don't generally go around putting random plants in our mouths. However, children do. Have any of you ever caught your baby brother or sister chewing on one of the plants in your house? Or maybe you were caught chewing on one. Considering the fact that a baby's body is smaller and less hardy than ours, we have to look out for them. A small amount of poison that might go unnoticed in an adult can cause more serious harm to a child. So, poisonous plants are dangerous to kids, but there are measures that can be taken to ensure safety. You can identify the plants in your surroundings by giving a call to your local garden center. You can describe the plant to them, and hopefully they can tell you whether or not it has poisonous properties. Alternatively, you can take the plant down to show them. Also, if you buy a new plant, it is wise to ask whether or not it is poisonous. Now, there are three main categories of toxicity in plants: extremely toxic, moderately toxic, and minimally toxic. These names, however, are very misleading. You see, the severity of the poison depends on a host of other factors, like the particular plant and the metabolism of the person. The term poisoning itself is actually also misleading. Poisoning doesn't only mean a person dies from the poison. Poisoning can result in anything from indigestion and skin irritation to lethal brain damage or death. Let's talk about a few categories of poisonous plants now. One category is the alkaloids. These are bitter-tasting plants with nitrogen compounds in them. A good example is hemlock. I mention it as an example because hemlock is famous. History buffs in the class may recall that it was the poison extracted from this plant that Socrates was forced to drink as his death sentence for corrupting the youth of Athens. That's just an interesting side note. Anyway, the effects of hemlock are similar to nicotine, but obviously much more severe, as it can cause the nervous system to shut down, resulting in death. Plants with minerals in them form another category of poisonous plants. These plants build up a large amount of some mineral that is toxic in humans, such as lead or copper. The effects of eating these plants can include psychological malfunctioning and, in higher doses, death. Plants containing oxalates are the third category. Oxalates, spelled oxalates, occur as small crystals in the plant and irritate the mouth. Not quite as serious as the other two, but poison nonetheless. Once again, those three categories of poisonous plants are the alkaloids, plants with minerals, and oxalates. So you may be wondering, why did poisonous plants evolve? What purpose does this serve? Well, there are many different sources of poison in different plants, as we just heard, but in most cases, the poison is a byproduct of one of the plant's natural life processes, and the poison serves as a defense mechanism for the plant. Animals learn which plants to stay away from because they get sick when they eat them. So it follows that the plant will survive and reproduce because no one is eating it.
Number 2. Literature. Listen and take notes on the important information in the lecture.
Okay, let's start with a bit of background on Plutarch before we get to his work. The particular work I mean is Plutarch's Lives. Plutarch lived from the year 46 to the year 120 in what had been, and at a later date continued to be, Greece. For many years, Plutarch served as one of the two priests at the temple of Apollo at Delphi, the site of the famous Delphic oracle, 20 miles from his home. Greece, by the turn of the first millennium, was a sad ruin of its former glory. Mighty Rome had looted its statues and reduced Greece to a mere conquered territory. Despite these circumstances, Mestrius Plutarchus, that is actually Plutarch's given name, lived a long and fruitful life with his wife and family in the little Greek town of Chaeronea. So, that is the man. Now, about his work. Plutarch's plan in his work Lives was to pair a philosophical biography of a famous Roman with the biography of a Greek who was comparable in some way. Plutarch's work includes short essays of comparison for each pair of lives, and after each essay, Plutarch pauses to deliver penetrating observations on human nature as illustrated by his subjects. This structure makes it difficult to classify lives under a single genre. I mean, to classify it as history, biography, or philosophy. Plutarch's announced intention was not to write a chronicle of great historical events, but rather to examine the character of great men, as a lesson for the living. I think, and I certainly hope you agree after you've had a chance to read it, that this is a fascinating work with applicable lessons for living for readers even today. An interesting point about Plutarch's Greek heroes is that his subjects had been dead for at least 300 years by the time he wrote about their lives, around 100 AD. That means Plutarch had to rely on old manuscripts, many of which no longer exist today. All we have left to rely on is Plutarch's work. But even ancient legends can yield some insight. As Plutarch says at the beginning of his Life of Theseus, Plutarch himself had no faith in the accuracy of even the so-called factual materials he had to work with. He actually made a comment to this effect in his essay on the life of Pericles. To quote, he said, "It is so hard to find out the truth of anything by looking at the record of the past. The process of time obscures the truth of former times, and even contemporaneous writers disguise and twist the truth out of malice or flattery." That's something for you to keep in mind the next time you're reading your history textbook. Anyway, in spite of this problem, Plutarch managed to compare Roman and Greek heroes, and do it well enough that his work has survived the ages. It is interesting that this work was very popular until the 20th century. Then people pretty much forgot about it. Let's talk a little bit about why that happened. The Romans loved Plutarch's Lives, and enough copies were written out over the next centuries that a copy of most parts of Lives managed to survive the Dark Ages in different places. It's interesting to note the number of famous figures from history who have appreciated Plutarch's writing and wisdom. Beethoven, as he was growing deaf, wrote in 1801, and I quote, "I have often cursed my creator and my existence. Plutarch has shown me the path of resignation. If it is at all possible, I will bid defiance to my fate, though I feel that as long as I live, there will be moments when I shall be God's most unhappy creature. Resignation. What a wretched resource. Yet, it is all that is left to me." Beethoven read Plutarch's comparisons of the lives of Greek and Roman heroes and found wisdom there. There are many other examples of famous people finding inspiration in Plutarch. The poet Ralph Waldo Emerson was another fan of Lives. So you may be asking yourself, if this book is so famous, why haven't I ever heard of it? Well, despite all of the attention Plutarch's work got through the ages, by the 20th century, Plutarch's popularity began to fade. None of the literary scholars were putting out revitalized new editions of Lives. Probably because students were demanding more diversity in the reading curriculum, so a lot of classic works of literature were being pushed aside. Another factor could have been that Lives is a difficult book. Plutarch uses a complicated style of writing, so it's not an easy read.